Hi, Nancy Golden here, and I am going to provide you with some information for planning your upcoming In the Cut uh, school tour. I was invited by Tony to attend your meeting today. However, I'm not able to do so. So this is my way of supporting you and contributing my information so that your school tour will be successful. A little information about myself. I am Tony's aunt by way of marriage, and I'm also a retired educator from the School District of Philadelphia. I retired in June of 2013 after serving 32 years as a teacher, as a department chairperson, special education liaison, and assistant principal. So I kind of have an idea of what it takes to make sure that you have a successful assembly program for students. All right. So some of the things I want you to consider for this presentation, there are things that I call pre-assembly considerations, the actual assembly program, and then post-assembly considerations. So let's talk about the pre-assembly considerations. So prior to going into the building, there are some things that you have to know and have in place to ensure a successful program. One, you have to make contact with the coordinator of the assembly programs within the school. 9 times out of 10, that is not the principal. It may be the assistant principal, or it may be a lead teacher, or a small learning community coordinator. Okay, so you have to get the name of that person. Of course, you have the school number, and once you get in contact with the person, make sure you get their cell phone so that you can stay in contact with that person outside of school hours if necessary. Also, be aware that there's a policy in place for visitors entering any school district building. Whether the school adheres to those policies or not is not of your concern. You need to make sure that you know what the policies are and that you follow them. One, because you are doing a school presentation, the school district doesn't require you at this time to have your clearances because you're just doing upfront presentation for students. You're not necessarily working in small groups. You're not doing workshops where you're definitely interacting with children. If that be the case, then you would have to have clearances in place to do so. Okay? Information about policies and procedures for most schools can be found on the website. And for the School District of Philadelphia, you go to the School District of Philadelphia's website. You put in the search bar policy and procedures for programming, and it will come up as to who's considered a person that needs clearances as opposed to those who don't. And in this case, because you're not necessarily interacting with students in small groups, you're not taking them in a classroom, you're not engaging them per se, then you're considered a speaker or a presenter. You don't necessarily need the clearances. Also, upon entering the building, make sure that you have your identification. Because when you come into the building, you have to present identification. And in middle schools and high schools and most Philadelphia schools, they have metal detectors. So make sure that you don't have anything that would compromise your ability to enter the building. All right. So once you enter, you have to present ID. You have to sign in a sign-in book. And then you'll either be given at that desk a visitor's badge or a sticker that says visitor, or some schools, depending on the protocol of that building, they may radio the office to say the visitors are here for the assembly program. Once you let them know, they'll direct you to the main office. There you'll be greeted by the secretary, who will again say you're here for, and you say I'm here for the In the Cut assembly program, and I need to see Miss So-and-so, who's the coordinator of the program. They in turn will contact that person, who in turn will come down and meet you in the office and escort you to the auditorium. Or they may have someone come down and show you where to go until the coordinator is able to meet with you. I would suggest that you always arrive 15 to maybe 20 minutes before the program. That way, you're situated, you're in place. No matter what's going on in the school, you're there and they're not waiting for you, because it makes you look very professional. okay? The other thing is, prior to entering that school, make sure that you have a written confirmation that you've given to the coordinator, that you've mailed to the coordinator for her to sign or him to sign and send back. Because what that does, it puts in writing what the expectations are between you and the school. Because there's a saying that goes, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. And it's also good for your record. So you have the contact person, the date that you're supposed to present, right? The group that you're supposed to present to, the venue where it's going to be held. And let's talk about that. Is the venue going to be the auditorium? Is it going to be a classroom? Is it going to be the library? Also know that some schools don't have an auditorium. They have a lunchroom that they convert into an auditorium. So just know where the venue is going to be. Also in the confirmation, put down the things that you need. You need a sound system. You need a microphone. If you're on the stage, do you want the stage lights on? Do you need a table for your papers? So whatever it is, you have to, during these planning considerations, write down all of the things that you can think of that will be part of the necessary items prior to the actual presentation. Okay. Also, for your pre-considerations, keep in mind that you're dealing with children that you don't know. So you may want to have some behavior management strategies in your belt, in your tool case, in your toolbox rather. Some things that you might know to do if something happens. For example, in the middle of your presentation, the fire alarm bell might go off. So what do? So the coordinator will then tell you, okay, this is we have a fire drill. You exit out this way. All right. A fight may break out. I hope not, but then what do? You always refer to the coordinator to handle those kinds of things. Don't get in the middle of the school business. That is not your concern. All right. You may have students who laugh inappropriately or call out. So what do you do as a presenter if they disrupt your presentation? So think of some things that you can do that are hands off to make sure that you have the kids engaged. And one thing that you can do is something that I call planned ignoring. That means that you are not giving attention to those students who are not cooperating. You just don't. Kids want attention. Good attention, bad attention is still attention to them. So the child who might act out wants attention, but you don't give it to him or her. So let's say that you're doing your presentation and the kid starts talking or laughing, and everybody pays attention to that child. Then what you do is redirect and look at a kid who's behaving, or a whole row of students. You might say, you know what, whose class is this? And they'll tell you, and you'll say, oh, you guys are so great. Man, thank you so much for being so polite. I appreciate that. And then next thing you know, everybody's going to sit up because they want you to give them attention. And you just disregarded the person over here who started all the trouble in the first place. So it's called planned ignoring, when you have a plan of action to address behaviors that are inappropriate. Okay, so those are some of the pre-assembly program considerations. And there may be others as you plan throughout the day, but I'm just giving you like a framework from which to follow. Right? All right, so now let's say that we're now dealing with the actual planning of the presentation. Now remember, you have to decide if it's what block of time you're working out of. Some schools have different roster schedules. Some schools have 45 minutes where you can do a assembly program. Other schools might have an hour. It depends on their block of time. Sometimes they combine the times for you to accommodate you. But I don't think that your presentation should be longer than an hour. 45 minutes to an hour is enough, especially if you're just talking and you're not providing any visual aids or anything for them to visually see. Now, if you in fact incorporate maybe a segment from in the cut for them to see, then make sure in your confirmation that you ask for an LCD projector and a screen and speakers so that you can put your clip on so the kids can see it. Because I think that would be interesting for them to actually see a segment of it. So make sure those things are outlined in the confirmation that you send out to the school. Now, when you think of the actual planning of the assembly program, that is the most crucial part to me of what you're doing. Okay? Now, just for a minute, I want to say this one thing. I know, because I talked to Tony, that your main goal for the school tour is to increase your audience base, to increase your following, to increase your presence on social media, and to ultimately get signed by a major network for television or something. And I think that's wonderful. I think that's great. But in the interim, there's some secondary goals that you are actually addressing that you may not even realize that you're addressing. You're going into schools and you're sharing your stories with children, stories that could ultimately, positively impact their lives for the better. And I think that's awesome. Plus, you look like them, you have street credit, and the kids will tune in to whatever it is that you have to say. So, yes, you may be increasing your audience base, but you're also making a positive impact in the lives of students. And that's just for me. Okay, now, when you think of the actual presentation, think of a body. Your head, torso, and feet. Okay, so the presentation is 3 parts. Your introduction, right, which would be your head. Your torso, which would be the body, the bulk of your presentation, and your feet, which would be the conclusion. Now, for the head, that is the most crucial part of the presentation. Why? Because you are captivating their attention right from the beginning. If you don't get them in the first 5 minutes, you have lost them. And what you'll see is a group of students sitting quiet and what I call stargazing. They're looking at you, they're quiet, but they're not paying attention to a thing that you're saying because you've lost their attention and they have left the building in their mind. Passive students are students who sit quiet, who are polite, and they're looking at you, but they're not engaged. You want them engaged. So you have to think of ways to do that. And engaged students learn. Passive students don't because they're not doing anything. If you're doing something, that's how you learn, right? Okay, so the first 5 minutes is your introduction, and that's when you grab them. So you're called in the cut. So you might want to ask a question. Well, the name of my program is In the Cut. Why do I call it In the Cut? ENDACUTT as opposed to INTHECUT. Now that start. Now if I was a kid, I might say, "Oh, in the cut," as opposed to in the cut. And so they'll raise their hand and they'll say, "Yeah, because it's slang or it's hood, it's what's going on in the." I don't know, but you're getting them to provoke thought, right? Or you can start off with something that will just get them going. You have to think of something creative to get them going as you introduce yourself. That's 5 minutes. Then the body will take about, if you're doing an hour-long presentation, the body takes about 50 minutes, right? So within that 50 minutes, every minute of the 50 minutes, you need to know what it is you're saying and what it is you're doing. Okay? Also, in the head introduction, you are introducing your objective. Your objective is, what is it that you want the kids to know and be able to do as a result of your presentation? That's your objective, and you state what that objective is. You let them know, I'm here because blah, blah, blah. Okay? So in the body, that's when you're going to go over who you are, the who, what is it that you do, the what, and the where, and the why, rather. Why? Why is it that you're doing this? And how can it help me? Why is it necessary for you to come and talk to us? Okay? So the who you are, that break it up into 15 minutes or 20 minutes. The what you're doing, break that up. And the why, right? So then you break the body up into time intervals as well. So you have 5 minutes for the introduction. The body, you have about, like I said, 50 minutes. So you break that up. Oh, my phone ringing. So you break that up and turn my phone off. And so you have that broken down into time. So talk about what it is. Who's in the cut? Who are you? Who are you? And spend time on that. And what is it? What is it that you do? And that's when you have your different people come up and tell their stories. And why is it that you're doing? And during this whole time, you're doing storytelling. You're engaging the students. You're asking